Welcome into a CHGO Bears mini pod. We are at Halas Hall. Adam Hoge, Mark Carman just covered the press conferences with the Bears' new free agent signings, at least some of them. We heard from General Manager Ryan Poles, the head coach Ben Johnson, who continues to be impressive, Joe Thuney, Jonah Jackson. They did a presser together, and then Grady Jarrett stole the entire show. Where do you want to start, Carm?
Well, as always, Adam, I'd like to shout myself out. And I said before I'd even knew the guy or heard him talk in a Bears uniform, so to speak, that I was my new best friend, that I was going to fall in love with Grady Jarrett. And I fell in love today in ways that I was unexpecting. The Bears, we've talked about this a lot. They need leaders in the locker room, proven players. You said when they signed him, this is a real player. And that was a real dude at the podium today. It brought it brought a smile to literally every Bears fan's face.
Yeah. So I'll tell you a little story about what happened right as that press conference started, because by the sheer luck of the whole situation, for whatever reason, I ended up sitting next to Ben Johnson during the press conference.
Hoge sat in the front row. I'll tell the story. He sits in the front row, and there was all these seats that were available, and you saved me a seat in the second row where I got to sit next to the amazing Mark Potash and Kevin Fishman. I'm like, why didn't we just sit in the front row? No, those are reserved. So it almost feels like you strategized your moment with Ben.
I didn't do anything. I had no idea who was going to be sitting there, but Ben did sit down there next to me, and when Grady Jarrett's press conference started, he taps me on the knee and goes, "Buckle up."
That's amazing.
Because he knew it was coming, and he certainly delivered. I told him that when it was over. I mean, Grady Jarrett, but this is what I was talking about when they made the signing, when we did our show on Monday. I mean, this is who Grady Jarrett is, man. The guy loves playing football. He is going to play football until he literally cannot anymore. And hopefully, guys like that, I think it makes it easier to project, that even as he goes into his 11th season in the NFL, that's a lot of mileage that you're still going to get, at least a year, maybe more out of him with this contract. And I, you look at the tape from last year. I watched it. I thought the quickness was still there. Plus, there's a lot of people we talked to in Atlanta who think he'll be even stronger next year because he was coming off an ACL tear. So when you add up what's probably still left out there on the football field, even if it's not a long runway, and you add everything we saw in that press conference today was all the things that our guy Greg Braggs has been ranting and raving about the Bears lacking for months and months and months in terms of just the leadership, the fire, what this locker room needs.
Right, and also been there, done that. He's like, it was kind of funny as he was going through his history in Atlanta. Well, I also do have the most QB hits in the history of the franchise that everyone started, like Poles was right in front of me. He started laughing like he, advocating for himself, letting you know who he is, and also saying, hey, these guys don't know me as far as his leadership. We've got to, we've got to bleed together was one of the things that he said. So his desire to still be great, saying that his best years are in front of him, which is unlikely, but the fact that that's his goal, you would like whatever's left, whatever juice is left in that lemon that is Grady Jarrett. I think he's gonna find it. There's no doubt that whatever he can get out of himself, he's gonna get.
Absolutely. So, got to be excited about that on the defensive side of the ball. But let's switch to the offensive side. Again, they had Joe Thuney, Jonah Jackson do the press conference together. No one shied away from the expectations about where these guys are going to be playing. Thuney at left guard, Jackson at right guard. When asked about moving to right guard, Jackson immediately was like, well, that's where I had my first playing time in the NFL. No one seemed too worried about that. We'll have to wait and see, obviously, once everything comes together. But I did think it was notable, Carm, that while we were doing these press conferences, Kevin Zeitler signed a one-year contract for $9 million with the Tennessee Titans. So Kevin Zeitler, you could argue could have been like sort of Grady Jarrett-ish on the offensive line in terms of a proven guy, somebody who's played with Ben Johnson. It would have been, I think the Bears probably had some interest there. They could have gone that direction. And for Ben Johnson / Ryan Poles, but Johnson had a big play in this, to be like, no, let's go trade for Jonah Jackson, who's younger, he obviously believes in this kid a lot and seems to have no hesitation that he could play right guard. And the fact that they've been together and seem to have that comfort together gives me some optimism that that's actually going to work.
Yeah, and it was interesting too when Poles was asked about it, his disappointing 4-game performance last year. Well, they played him out of position. He played center, so to me that comes also to your point a little bit from Ben. Like, look, they're playing him at center. That's not where he belongs. He's a guard. He could play either side. He'll be fine.
Give him a Pro Bowl caliber guard,
Right.
and that's what we're going to get out of him. That was the direct quote.
Exactly. So that showed the confidence. And look, I am the over press conference analyzed guy, but Jonah Jackson was very grounded and confident in himself. It wasn't like he had anything to prove, really. Like, it just seemed like there was a embedded belief, if you will, that he has in himself. That look, last year was last year. It was disappointing. Ton that I can learn from, and I'm going to be a really good player for the Chicago Bears right now.
Yeah,
I liked it. I liked it a lot.
And then you got Joe Thuney, who just
nicest guy in the history of the planet.
Yeah.
He was very.
I always get a kick out of and the Bears have had a lot of these guys, like a Cody Whitehair. Like, I don't think ruffled a feather the entire time he was here, and then you go on the football field. Tevin Jenkins the same way, and they just turn into monsters. And that's where Joe Thuney is on the field.
Yeah, I mean, Chris Elma, I think, was the first one who asked him, "Hey, you need a contract extension there? Would you consider one?" Well, I'm just happy to be here. Well, and then I forget who was next, and then the third was Pat Finley. He's like, "Let me try it a different way." Like, they really tried to get him to. Do you need to see? I think Potash asked him, "Do you need to see something from the Bears to want you to sign here?" And he dodged that one too. Like, he didn't want any of contract extension, nothing. Just, I'm happy to be here. I'm super impressed by the building, the history. All of them talked about the history. That seems to get drilled in immediately. I'll be honest, I was hoping for a little bit more of a sort of a harder edge with Joe Thuney, but he was just Mr. Nice Guy up there today.
Well, they're not all going to be the same, but I think I think that's the one guy I'm not worried about at all.
Well, there's no reason to be. Guy, I mean, this is his personality. This was my bad performance. I tried to get in about 5 times with Thuney, and I didn't today. I'm gonna have to look in the mirror at my voice levels and my positioning. All these things were off. But it does, to what we've been talking about this week, I don't know about him being Johnny Vocal leader. Like, he seems more of a get-along guy from what we saw today.
Well, he's a lead by example guy.
Yeah.
Grady's the one guy that I felt like came off as like that can be more than that.
No doubt.
For sure.
No doubt.
By the way, did you see how Biggsy started off Joe Thuney's presser?
I forget.
So how about those 3 sacks Grady Jarrett had in the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
Because that was back when Joe Thuney was playing for the Patriots. And
that was when he was walking in, not in the or
no, it was like the first question.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's funny.
Basically.
Yeah.
No, you can ask that because I don't know if you remember who won that game.
Right. Of course.
28-3.
Right.
So anyway, I think that
it's a good day for the Bears.
Yeah, I mean, getting back to, we were talking a little bit off the air about this too. It's just, look, I've been part of press conferences here, first day of free agency, where they're, no disrespect to Marcus Wheaton, who was one of the more entertaining guys to talk to on and off the field. But when you had like the Marcus Wheatons of the world and Deion Sims and Mike Glennons and like, you had 3 real football players, like real good football players at the podium today. That made you, and we love that they're line of scrimmage guys, right? We're talking about guys in the trenches. It just felt different.
Yeah, and it also felt like these guys been there, done that, a lot of winning in the room. It's just it felt like a different level of player to the overall point, different level of confidence. You want to just go back to last year. I'm thinking about Darrell Taylor's press conference where he just got up there and he was like weirdly smiling and just talking. It was like straight bizarre.
Nobody analyzes press conferences like you do.
It was freaking bizarre.
I mean, I don't even remember that.
Oh well, I don't know if you were there that day, but it was if it was, I'm like, okay, that's not normal, and I don't know what that's gonna be, but I probably fell for it for a second, but then I was like, this is real weird. Today, not weird, grounded, motivated, just a feeling of winning, and also just how much Ryan Poles enjoyed watching them up there. I mean, he was
Yeah.
laughing with Grady Jarrett a lot, and I mean, it just I think Ryan Poles feels a whole lot better with where the Bears are at right now. I thought it was also interesting. You know, I asked him like, "Hey, does this open up the draft for you?" And he's like, "Yeah, it does," with a big smile on his face. And so, you know, got to watch. Me and Ben are gonna watch a lot of tape.
Yeah, all options are open. And then the last thing we haven't really discussed is just Ben Johnson and things that he had to say. But I think like obviously huge belief in Jonah Jackson that you could feel, not just hear from him talking. I think the trust in Joe Thuney, you could tell he's excited, and I just feel like we're on a run here. The Bears doing the obvious thing for a while now. This feels good. It's about 2 months, middle of January, now in the middle of March, and they're just doing the obvious things. Ben Johnson clearly has a type of player he wants. He said that today, greedy, whatever the whole, I just butchered that whole quote, but it's very clear what he's looking for. That's what they're going to get.
I thought mid-season form almost today. It's like his hair was a little disheveled. He was like, I think he's like been in the room like doing tape and whatnot.
Well, he was clearly like fired up for Grady
Yeah.
Jarrett's press conference.
Yeah, I mean, like the dude's working.
Yeah.
He's not doesn't seem. Yeah,
But even from that side of it too, I mean, because this is a good start, I think, for Ben Johnson acquiring a player on the defensive side of the ball because he's an offensive coach, but and I'm sure obviously Dennis Allen had a huge say in the two defensive signings with Dio included, who we'll mention that in a second. But Ben Johnson comes in here, he talks about integrity and accountability, and I think you saw from Grady Jarrett today how he fits that mentality, what he's trying to build in the locker room.
and look, they need it. It's I think if you can try to peek behind the scenes. What do we need in here? Hey, dude, your 3-tech situation, it hasn't impressed me at all. We need somebody who can make an impact. And by the way, you talked about needing some leadership around here. Your players did all season long. Why don't it seems like they were sprinting down to Atlanta to get Grady Jarrett once he became available.
Why have we not talked about Dio Odangbo or Drew Dahlman? Because they were not officially introduced today. Different guys come in at different times. No reason to necessarily be worried, even though we did go through that Larry Ogunjobi thing a couple years ago. But guys do have to get in the building, do their physicals, sign the contract before everything's completely official. There's more availability at Halas Hall on Thursday, so we'll probably hear from those guys tomorrow, but that's why those guys did not have an introductory press conference. Should also mention we will have all of this covered in much more depth on the full episode of the CHGO Bears podcast on Thursday at noon, so make sure you tune in for that. Any final thoughts?
I don't know if I can bring it back tomorrow. I laid everything out there right now. I got to refocus. No, don't bring up Larry Ogunjobi. He's made me nervous that Dio's not going to pass his physical.
People ask that.
Don't ask that. Dio's fine.
They're like, well, where are these guys?
Dio.
I'm trying to lower the concern.
Okay. Odangbo's coming in tomorrow. So is Jarrett. We'll be here. At least I hope they are. Now you made me nervous, but I'm sure it's fine.
Well, we'll be here regardless. We'll cover. And Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson are going to talk again.
Yeah, this whole scheduling thing, Cats, Wisconsin tomorrow, Big Ten tournament, right in the middle of the whole thing. Kevin Fishbain was the MVP today. I don't know if I'm outing you on this, but the fact that he's standing there in the press conference watching the Cat game, that is the Bears reporter that I love the most. Really an unbelievable performance by Fishbain.
That's a real Cat fan.
That is a real Cat fan. I do it again tomorrow, Kevin. I need you.
By the way, the last 10 minutes of that game tomorrow will probably be taking place simultaneously with the press conference. So if Fishbain and I start yelling at each other,
that'd be amazing.
Now you know why.
If somehow it's a close game and you two are going back and forth, we can multitask. Nobody cares about this. I get it, but you made it to the end of the video, so we love you. Good day for the Bears.
All right, this has been a little mini version of the CHGO Bears podcast. Full version coming your way at noon on Thursday. Plenty more coverage all week long as we continue free agency frenzy.
Ditka. Sayers.